God's done too much for me. God has blessed me too much. He's answered so many prayers. Even when
Mm-hmm.
you think he's not listening and you feel like your prayers are not going up any further than the back of the couch, he moves on them. And you remember you prayed
Mm-hmm.
about that, and he moves on it. And you're like,
Right.
you heard me the whole time. And then you start crying all over again. God really cares about you. Even when you think he's not there, he does.
Absolutely.
Even when you don't feel him, he's really there.
Thank you, Brother Chip, for hopping on our next episode of the Stepping Beyond Belief podcast. We're very grateful you've taken the time. I know you work some crazy hours with where you work, so I'm glad we were able to work this out. So, where I wanted to start this conversation is there's all sorts of different roles we have in the church. When we all get saved, we have our basic responsibilities of, okay, we're going to come to church, we're going to read our Bible, we're going to pray every day, we're going to do those different things. But another one of those just kind of standard things is worshiping God and giving God praise and just being delighted in service. And for some people, that is they're going to get up and sing a special and do that front work. But in what I've noticed in the Church of God is we also have people that are out in the pews worshiping and giving God praise and glory. And that's something that's always been for me that you're a prime example of that in our congregation. Whenever the choir is singing a song, you are one of the first to be raising their hand, rejoicing, just really getting into the service, and you can't help but have this giant smile on your face. What makes you have that elation during the worship service?
It's what's being sung, the words.
Mm-hmm.
There is a connection with the experience of salvation and what is being sung, the words that are being sung. So whenever the saints sing, there is just this connection that, yes, and I start raising my hand in agreement
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I feel it, and it's something that we all share. But a lot of the songs, even though we have sung them over and over, they never get old. There's still this experience that you have lived when you came to God and when you're still worshiping God after so many years that is always fresh, always inspiring, and you feel the Spirit of God communing with us when we sing those songs. It's a form of worship.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel the Spirit of God come in and accept that worship. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a feeling that's very hard to describe, except other than to say it's very inspiring.
Now, um, did you grow up in a church or grow up in church where there was worship like this? Because for me, the type of church I went to, we would sing a lot of the same hymns. There's some newer hymns we would sing, but there was no rejoicing in the songs. You'd get up, you'd sing a couple of the verses, you'd have somebody sing a special, you'd have a choir sing, but there was no anything beyond maybe one of the quote unquote on fire for God type of people would say amen. And that's about it. That's about the
Mhm.
extension of the worship. There was no raising of hands. So for me, it was a very difficult thing to go from I'm just going to be in church. I even joked with Brother Stephen when I first got saved, like, hey, um, I think that guy has a question, or that person's got a question because they're all raising their hand. I'm like, I don't know what this is about. But for me, it was one of those moments that God really helped me develop spiritually. It was after I had gotten sanctified. I hadn't started doing it, and we were at Mount Tabor camp meeting, which is a phenomenal experience going to a camp meeting for your first time. And it was just like you just need to follow the culture of where you're at is was the counsel that I was given because I went down And just like I don't, or maybe it was just something that was talked about from the pulpit, just like custom to whom custom, culture to whom culture. And it's just like, okay, I want to give honor to God the way they do it here. And when I rose my hand that first time, it was during an altar call, which was not very typical. But for me, it was just like, I need to do it for myself. And there was just such a, God just kind of came down in that moment, just like, yes, I
Hmm.
see that you're doing what I want you to do. And I'm well pleased. And it was a really important moment for me.
Mm.
And I've been doing it ever since. It's been 10 years now, almost. Um, so you didn't grow up with that. So what taught you to rejoice in such an exuberant way?
So, yes, no, I did not grow up as a churched person. Never went to church, except when I went to visit my grandmother
Okay.
every summer, and she attended the Church of Christ, which is very similar to what you came out of, very dead, no spirit there.
Hmm.
There was a song or two that they sang that we also sing,
Hmm.
but again, no life, no
Hmm.
no real reason to rejoice. And I think a short answer is if you don't have the real experience, there isn't really anything to rejoice about. If you're not truly saved from sin and you haven't experienced the power of being delivered from such a state of bondage when you want out and you can't get out, and God reaches down and delivers you, and the
Hmm.
saints start singing about that time it happened for you, that's a cause of real rejoicing.
Right.
Now, as far as putting your hand up, my father asked me that question when he came for a visit one time. And why is everyone putting their hand up? Well, it's a
Hmm.
signification of agreement and a connection
Right.
that happened to me. Yes, that happened to me. And it's also part of our worship. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a witness of something that happened to me personally. And,
Hmm.
your memory goes back to those times when the saints start singing about those times, and it just causes a real rejoicing to come over you, and your heart starts beating and the adrenaline starts flowing because now I have the experience. When I was
Right.
young and visiting my grandmother in the Church of Christ, I didn't have a real experience nor understand what salvation meant.
Right.
um, but now that I have the understanding that salvation is deliverance from sin, and I got that experience and God gave it to me, that's a cause of real rejoicing. Because when you're in bondage to sin and you want out and you can't get out, you cry out to God, help me, and he delivers you. That's
Hmm.
a cause of great rejoicing.
Absolutely.
When
It's
you,
yeah. I love how you're describing that, and we've not covered this in one of our Bible studies. Is it's deliverance, but that's not the whole thing. It's deliverance from sin, deliverance from being a slave to another master. It is salvation. It is redemption. It's a change of state. You're not just in one thing. And what we see so often, Church of Christ or the Baptist Church or the Catholics or whatever, by and large, the experience of the members of those churches is, oh yes, I've been saved, but it's an action they've taken. It's not something that's happened to them. It's not something God has done in their lives where there was a dramatic difference of life before they got saved and after they got saved because
Mhm.
nothing changed.
Correct.
It may have changed for a little while, but then if they go back into sin, they weren't delivered. They went right back
Hmm.
to their original master.
Hmm.
So I think that's a really important distinction to be making, and I really like how you that's just how you talk about it. So carry on.
So that's the reason for my rejoicing. And a lot of the songs we know because we sing them a lot, and so you know what the saints are going to sing. But also before
Hmm.
that, you replay that event in your mind, and then also you feel the Spirit of God, which you do not feel anywhere else,
Hmm.
like you do in the Church of God. You feel the Spirit of God coming down. And so the culmination of all of that just causes the joy inside. Sometimes you can't contain it. A lot of times you can't contain it.
Right.
There's a
No.
reason for the rejoicing. It's not out of form. It's
Right.
not just something that the Church of God just does. It's something that uh, that happens as a result of God coming in and smelling in our worship, and we're also reflecting on the experience that He gave us the day He delivered us, and what He continues to do for us each day.
Right. So for you, that experiencing God is not just, man, we've got some really good musicians. We do in the Church of God. It's not because they're skillfully playing on the instrument
No,
or they're singing these wonderful chords. It's the words
yeah,
resonating with your soul and
absolutely,
the experience it's had. So
absolutely,
it
yes.
could be somebody stands up and reads a short poem, which I know there's some people that do, just read a poem
Hmm.
and it really resonates with you. And I completely agree.
It does.
And for me, I love listening to the songs in service because you know the testimony behind the people that are singing the songs.
Yes.
There's people that maybe they have 3 or 4 songs. That's all the songs they sing, and they sing every once in a while. And it's like, but they just break down in tears because of how good God's been to them.
Yep.
But then you go on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, and you hear some artist sing the same song. Because I don't know their testimony, it doesn't hit the same way, even though the orchestration, the way they sing it, everything else might be absolutely perfect and very moving. It's not the same as seeing someone you've seen struggle with an affliction sing about how God's been good to them and how God's provided for their needs.
Right.
It hits different, at least for me.
Absolutely. One is a performance of the flesh, and the other one is singing from the heart and from an experience with
Hmm.
God. There's a big
Absolutely.
difference.
Yeah. So let's dive into what your deliverance was like,
Mm.
because you've
Oh,
got quite a colorful testimony,
oh,
as some people would say.
classic testimony of salvation. So when I'll try to make it as short as I can. When I became finally sick and tired of my sinful ways, my immoral lifestyle, my drug binging, my alcohol binging, I got tired of it one day because I wanted something more out of life.
Hmm.
The partying was not satisfying anymore. It was fun for a long time.
Hmm.
But then there came a point where, wait a minute, I need something deeper than this. I need something more meaningful than this. This is getting really tiring. This is getting really weary. And I wanted something more out of life. And when I began searching and wanting something more out of life, I realized I couldn't quit doing what I was doing. And I went, wait a
Hmm.
minute. Why can't I stop doing this? Why can't I stop the drugs? Why can't I stop the immoral activities I'm doing? And why do I keep finding myself going back to it all the time? Why do I have these feelings also inside that I don't want to have? Then I realized I'm trapped. That's when
Hmm.
I started calling out to God. I am trapped. I cannot give this up. And I want to. What do I do now? That's what got
Hmm.
me calling out to God. And I did.
Is there anything that was a trigger for you to call out to God, or did you just know inherently that's who you should go to for that?
Well, I knew God had answers. So the question in my mind is, well, why do I have these sinful desires that I don't want?
Hmm.
And I knew that if anyone had an answer, God had the answer. And so that's when I started seeking him with all of my heart. Went to the Church of Christ because that's the only place I knew to go. Got no answers.
Right.
Sat there a couple of times, listened to a lifeless message about nothing. I can't even recall. Searched and searched and searched, cried out. I mean, I would just cry out to God, God, please help me.
Hmm.
Um, And then one day I just turned on the television to a religious radio station, and there was this guy by the name of Harold Armstrong preaching about
Okay.
the church being kept in the Father's name, and that's the Church of God. You need to go to the Church of God. When he said that, there was this huge presence in the house that filled up the whole house and said, you need to go to the Church of God. I don't know how else to explain it. It was a presence that was big. I thought the whole neighborhood felt it. It wasn't so much an audible voice as it was a presence
Hmm.
that said, you need to go to the Church of God. So immediately I went to the phone book. They had phone books back in 1986. And I started looking through all of the Church of God addresses in the phone book at the time. And I wrote down about 5 of them. And the second address that I went to was 3946 West McDowell, which is where our old building was. And I said, I'm coming here next Sunday. I want answers.
Why did you go to the second one first?
The first one was a vacant lot. So I thought, okay, not going there. So the next one, as I keep driving east on McDowell or west on
Hmm.
McDowell, was 3946 West McDowell. That's the area I was living in, kind of at the time. And so I went in that Sunday morning. And the first thing I remember, because I didn't want to meet anyone, I didn't care about meeting people. I wanted to make contact with God. So the message was the most important thing I came for. And I remember the pastor saying, you don't have to sin if you don't want to.
Mm.
I never heard that. I never heard that. And I didn't think he really said it, but then he said it again. You do not have to sin if you don't want to. There's deliverance from sin if you want it. And I said, well, okay. Well, I'm at the right place. This is where
Hmm.
I'm going to get my answers here. And sure enough, as I kept coming, every time the message would come over the pulpit, there were questions I had that kept getting answered. And the man behind the pulpit had no idea who I was, what my problem was, what I came for, what I was looking for. Nothing. Because as soon as the message was over, I'd leave. Didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted answers. But
That's so interesting.
the other thing that I sensed too while I was there is I was in the presence of more than flesh and blood. The prayers of the saints were so sincere. I could feel another presence. It's God, the presence of God coming down and listening to their prayers. They were so sincere. They were so heartfelt. But then also in the preaching, I noticed that it would just get very animated and people were saying amen and they were raising their hand and some were clapping. And I thought, what is the pastor doing? Is he throwing stuff over into the pews? And I would go around and look like that, look behind me. Why are they rejoicing? Well, I want some of that. Whatever it is they're eating, I want that.
Hmm.
It was manna. I had no idea. I just knew I wanted it.
Now, I'm going to take you on I'm going to take you on a little diversion here. Um, with if this is a tangent that doesn't go anywhere, that's fine.
Okay.
So I know you were on alcohol, drugs, all those different things, and something you're talking about is just this experience, feeling the presence, different things like that. Were you caught up in any of the new age stuff in that era or time? Because I
No,
know a lot of people that are at least just kind of picking up on culture and stuff. People that are on drugs and stuff sometimes have very new age experience, and they're experiencing this, and there's these higher entities and vibes and all that
no,
stuff.
no,
All
none of
that,
that.
none of that.
No,
You weren't into any of that. So this is
no.
just you were very much a materialist, and this is just what is real. And then there's
Yes,
this thing you've never encountered before saying you need to go to the Church of God. And then when he went to the Church of God, he was there,
he was there.
and he was listening to the saints, and he was making the preaching come. It's a novel experience for you at this point. This is not something you've
I never experienced it when I went to the Church of Christ as a visitor with my grandmother on occasion. Never experienced this. I never felt God there. I never felt the saints rejoicing. I never heard songs that had life to them. I never heard them pray anything that had any earnest, heartfelt petition to it. But I
Mm-hmm.
felt all of that at the Church of God. And so, it convinced me that I was in the presence of more. I was convinced that I found it. And then when I heard the message
Mm-hmm.
that you could be delivered from sin, I went up to the altar and I said, I want to be, I want to be right with God. I didn't know what saved meant.
Right.
I looked that up in Romans before I went to the church. I'll back up a little. I grabbed a Bible off of the shelf where I was staying at the time, and I opened it up to Romans 10 and verse 9, I believe it is. For with the mouth confession is made, that if you will confess that God had risen Jesus up from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the mouth
Mm-hmm.
confession is made.
Okay.
And I didn't know what saved meant, but what I did get was that if I confessed that I believed that Jesus was raised from the dead, that God would hear me. That's all I
Mm-hmm.
took from that. So I knelt actually and prayed. And as I
Mm-hmm.
got into the kneeling position on the bed and started praying, this whirlwind outside of this house where I was staying began to spin around and the roof began to creak. And then it stopped. And as I prayed, whatever it was I prayed, I don't even remember, it reversed direction and went back up. And it was from that point on, that's when I started looking for the Church of God.
Okay.
I left that part out. But anyway, that's when I started going to those
Mm-hmm.
addresses. And so
Saved.
saved. I didn't know what that meant. Saved
Mm-hmm.
from what? What's going to happen to me? Is something going to happen saved? So I didn't know saved meant saved from sin.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I went to the pastor and I said, I want to be right with God. And he said, how do you know you're not right with God? I said, well, I smoke. I wasn't confessing everything. He said, well, I smoke because I was ready to give up everything else and thought I did. Well, but smoking was hard. He said, well, God will deliver you. And I said, okay. And then I sat there and waited next to him. I'm like, okay, do something. I thought he was going to pray and then I would be right.
Uh-huh.
But he was waiting for me to find out how much. Anyway, long story short, I did finally understand I needed to go to the altar and ask and pray. And then that's when he said, okay, you need to ask God to forgive you. You need to forsake all of your sins and then ask him to save you. And then that's when I did it the first time in 1986. I was 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lasted about 8 or 9 months. And the reason
Well,
why I turned away, it wasn't really like a conscious thing. It was, I was not sold out. I did not part
mm-hmm.
with my worldly friends. I didn't part with my party buddies. I didn't separate myself from them. And I was not completely sold out. And I don't think I was sanctified because I
Mm-hmm.
got drawn back in through temptation.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the drugs again. I wanted all of the ungodly things that I was doing again. And they started to appeal to me again. And I just drifted back away, stayed away for about 10 years. But every once in a while, in those 10 years that I was gone, memories would come back of how good it felt to be saved, how wonderful it was to sit in church and have my soul blessed beyond anything I'd ever felt. And I began to miss that
Mm-hmm.
very much. I wanted to be able to sleep well. I wanted to be able to get on an airplane again and not be afraid that if it crashes, I know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horrible, terrifying way to live when you know the truth and you turn away from God, because you know that if anything happens to you, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired of the fear. I was also sad that my heart did not really want to turn back to him as much as I really wanted to. So there was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
heartache there, and then a longing to be right again, and I missed it. And so it kind of built up enough that I was like, this life out here is not doing anything for me again. I want to be right again. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be clear again. I miss it. I longed to be right with God again. And so that's what drew me back again. And God would
Mm-hmm.
come and talk to me. He would talk to me from time to time, and I just felt sorrowful that I'd left him.
Yeah,
So I came back again. 10 years
that's.
later, God was very merciful, took me back
Mm-hmm.
in, but I had to make the decision this time. Uh, this is it, I'm
To
in
get
business.
settled.
Got it settled. Got saved, and then about, I don't know, some time passed by, not too long, a month or two. I realized, okay, I need to be sanctified. I want to be sanctified. I
Mm-hmm.
want I want to sell out completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called my pastor at the time and told him, and he said, yes, I've been praying for you. So I got sanctified shortly thereafter. And that's 30 years ago, 1996.
It's 30 years ago. I just had my birthday, and I'm 30 now. So,
What a wonderful life. I
hmm
don't miss all of that
hmm
that I turned away from God for and went back out to do again. I don't
yeah,
miss any of it. It's still empty. It still
hmm
has nothing that's lasting. There's
right,
excitement, but that excitement is like this long. And then after you partake of the sinful excitement, you're left feeling awful.
right.
You're left feeling like you got kicked to the curb. You feel bad inside. You don't feel like you did something good. You feel like you did something shameful. And this weight is over you. And it's an awful way to live. You live in fear, and you live in guilt, and you live in shame. It's a horrible existence.
Yeah,
Not going back this time.
absolutely.
God's done too much for me. God has blessed me too much. He's answered so many prayers. Even when
hmm
you think he's not listening and you feel like your prayers are not going up any further than the back of the couch, he moves on them. And you remember you prayed
hmm
about that, and he moves on it. And you're like,
Right.
you heard me the whole time. And then you start crying all over again. God really cares about you. Even when you think he's not there, he does.
Absolutely.
Even when you don't feel him, he's really there.
Yeah.
It
And
gets
he's
better.
he's so faithful to
Very.
the searching soul. So it's kind of give some of my own experience because there's some parallels to your testimony and mine. Um, and for me, I grew up in a church where it was very much Bible believing. It had the word, but it didn't have the spirit of God. That wasn't there. So services were very much just very much form. You'd get up, you're going to have your two or three songs, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. And for me, I knew it was important to serve God, but there was starting I was starting to get questions, and I kind of fell away, and I fell away to such a degree that I gave up on believing in God entirely. Just cold turkey. I don't believe in God anymore. I There's just too many things that don't make sense to me. At 18, you don't have the world figured out at 18, but you sure think you do.
Did you really
But
not believe in him?
yeah, I remember um, I would take my dog on a walk across the street from the apartment complex we were living at, and I remember right when I was we it was a progressive thing. I stopped. I was having doubts about the church I was going to. We were going to a Baptist church in Virginia, and I got together a list of questions. I had about 6 questions, and I went to the pastor that was over our age group, and I asked him several questions and really basic things. And the answers he gave were not from the Bible, and they didn't make sense. And it was just like a Kamala Harris word salad. when I was talking to him, and just you're polite, you're just gonna let him talk his way through, and then when it was finished, it was 30 minutes. It was not very long, and for me, it was just like, okay, that guy has gone to Bible college. He's been in ministry for 15 years. He doesn't know anything more than I do. Why should I talk to anybody else if somebody with all those credentials doesn't know what they're talking about? I don't think I'm a Baptist anymore. That's kind of where I was at. And I remember when I was in that state, going on a walk with my dog, and just kind of praying out to God, like, God, if you exist, if you're out there, if the Christianity is true, if all of this is true, help me find the people that are doing it your way. The church that's talked about in the Bible, help me to go find that,
Mm,
because I don't see it. Because okay, if I'm not a Baptist, where am I going to go? Well, I know there's the Catholic Church. I know there's the Calvinists and maybe Lutherans, and there's probably a couple more. Then you look out online. This is 2015. There's 27,000 different sects and denominations in the United States, or 2,700, whatever it is. Just like, that's an astronomical number to try
right.
to work through and find the right thing. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to go pray about it. And then my sister, who went into unbelief at the same time as me, we were kind of banding together on it. She was going into the questions like, well, is the Bible true? Is this, is that? And it's like, well, God's not really the good guy in the story. Look at this statistic. The devil killed 0 people through the accounts of the Bible, but God killed an estimated 115 million or whatever it was, because of the flood and because of this uprising and that nation and this, and God does all this judgment. He's really the villain, not
Didn't you?
the
Weren't you afraid of thinking like that?
not in that state of mind, not
Oh
with
my!
the confusion and the fog coming in. I was just like, oh, I don't know. So it's like, okay, then if maybe this isn't true. And I already talked to somebody about questions I had. They had no answers, so I'm not going to go try that again, because the definition of insanity is trying something again and again and again and getting the same result. It's like, well, he gave me nothing. I'm not going to try that ever again. I'm going to go figure it out on my own. So that's sort of what led me just to kind of go out on that pathway. And instantaneously, when we decided we were going to be an atheist, the sins, the vices we had been struggling with intensified. And I started watching TV shows that were 10 times more violent or vile or perverse than I was watching beforehand. I started cussing. I started getting really into morality online and just letting loose. And I really became the exact opposite of what I was raised to be, which was a church going, upright, moral citizen, caring about tradition and different things like that. And it's like, well, I'm going to throw it all out and we're going to figure it out. So then I had to reconstruct my whole worldview without the Bible as the basis. And even though there's faults in the way I was raised and some of the thinking, there was still a better foundation than where I was heading to. But for me, God used that to break up the foundation into raw material over the next 14 months, when I decided, okay, I need to leave my house, because if I want to live the party life that you described, if I want to go do all those things, I can't do it while living at my parents' house. They'll know I'm drinking. They know I'm shacking up. They'll know I'm messing around with drugs. I can't be here and do these things. So I'm going to go join the military, because I might be able to get away with some of those things or whatever, just to get out of the house. That was the pathway I had. But God, in his mercy, kept me from being able to do that. He
Mm.
prevented me. I was slightly overweight at the time for the standards Obama had. Went to the gym regularly. I lost 5 pounds. I couldn't get into the Navy. So it's like, okay, let's move out. And I'm going to move to Phoenix and with my grandparents. And the moment I made that decision, that's when God started working on my unbelief. Not where to go to church, not what to believe. Just, okay, try some other churches. So I had a friend at work. He was raised Baptist. He was thinking about being Catholic or Anglican. He's a Calvinist now, so he's bounced around. But he took me to the church he was going to. So I went to an Anglican service in the morning. And boy, if I thought the Baptist service I was going to was starchy and boring and ordered, boy, oh boy, the Anglican is even more so. But to me, it had a beauty to it because, okay, we're all going to be reading out of the book of prayer. Everyone, all the Anglicans are going to read out of the book of prayer this one passage. And the message he's going to preach is the same. So the whole church is getting the same message at the same time. And we're going to all stand up for this part. We're going to sit down in this part. And there was an order and a beauty to the form they had, even though it's man-made. It still can look nice.
Sounded syncretized.
Yes, there you go. But I didn't partake of communion because I knew where I was at, and I'm like, I know what the Baptists teach about communion. I'm not partaking of that, and gonna get myself in trouble even more than I am. And then we went to a mega church type of thing where you can feel the music in the physical sense, where you feel the bass just shaking the stage. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is not for me. This is not the type of environment I want to be in for church, because the pastor got up and told stories for 15 minutes and that was his sermon. And it's like, oh my word, this is not spiritually enriching. And then that evening we went back to the church I was going to, and we kind of talked through it. And it got me on the road of going through apologetics. And okay, let's figure out these base arguments for the existence of God, or the existence of Jesus, or the resurrection of Christ, and working through those problems. And I did that for about 6 months before moving to Phoenix. And that's where I was at, is okay, I can see there being a God. I can see Jesus being real, but I don't know. I'm just not sold on it yet. And when we moved out here, I moved in with my grandparents, and they were going to a church, and I just went with them. But I said, okay, I'm going to talk with the pastor and just let him know, just as a respectful thing, hey, I'm probably not going to be sticking around very long once I get moved out, get my own apartment or whatever, and I'll leave then. And I just wanted to let him know that it's not his fault. I came in like I am, and I'm leaving as I am. It had nothing to do with you. Just, I don't know what motivated me to do that, but that's the way I was thinking as a 20-year-old. And he took the time and was like, hey, oh yeah, I understand where you're coming from. A lot of people your age struggle with these questions, and especially coming from the culture you had, being from that type of Baptist church. I can really understand where you're coming from. And here, read this or think about this, and really started getting me to be oriented about thinking about what Christ did on the cross, and thinking about getting saved, and the importance of being saved from hell is how they frame it, is you're being saved from hell, and you really want to have that assurance that you're saved from that final judgment. And just, for me, the most convincing thing was Pascal's wager. Are you familiar with Pascal's wager at all?
No, not at all.
So essentially, it was this mathematician back in the day. He made a grid, and it says, okay, if God is not real and I don't believe, there's no consequences. But if God is not real and I do believe, there's no consequences. There's no big deal. Either way, it's no big deal if you believe or not. But if God is real and I don't believe, there are some severe consequences, because I didn't believe in God. I did not follow his commandments. I didn't recognize his authority in the universe. But if God is real and I do believe, I can have abundance and a great reward, and there's really good consequences. So when you're looking at that, just that little graph, what's the right choice to make? It's the choice that gives you the best reward, which is believing in God, whether he's real or not. It doesn't hurt you, but it gives you great reward. Otherwise, it doesn't hurt you, or you have great punishment. So in that wager, if you're a betting person, you'd put your money on the things that's sure. So it's like, okay, whether he's real or not, I'm going to believe because that's going to be the best scenario for me. That was what helped me convince me over the line and got me to choose to be a Baptist again. But when I was going, these people are watching the same TV shows that I am.
Mm.
They're using the same language that I am.
Mm.
They're joking about things Christians ought not to be joking about.
Mm.
They're wanting to go out and go drinking. I thought we're at church. We don't go drinking if we're at
Mm.
church. And it just kind of didn't sit well with my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the moment that God put the people in my life at where I was working, the Chick-fil-A, where there was 4 saints, and I got invited to Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
And being invited to Bible study, okay, fine, I might go to Bible study, I might not, whatever. But I was ready for it. But
Yeah.
what got me to go to the Bible study is I had a full debate with somebody in the drive-through. They were doing the cashier and handling people at the window. I was bagging up the food. And we got talking about politics because I was a passionate Bernie Sanders supporter that year. Um, like I said, I had no moral foundations when I became an atheist. But we got debating on politics, and then we got talking about church. And being the curious, debating person that I am, so I'm like, okay, where do you go to church? I see you're wearing a skirt, so I know you go to church. People that I went to church with, they wore skirts, so it was no big deal for me. And they're like, okay, we go to the Church of God. Okay, so what does the Church of God believe? Because I've never heard of the Church of God. I know about all these different religions, but I've never heard of Church of God. That sounds like an interesting something. And it's like, okay, we believe um, in salvation, free from sin, blah 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 blah. No, I what it was is I started asking, okay, do you believe? Just kind of going through the doxology of the Baptist Church. Okay, do you believe in the Trinity? Do you believe Jesus died for your sins? Do you believe in eternal security, or that? I don't think I used eternal security. Assurance or something like that. And she's like, no, I don't believe that. I'm like, what? How can you live if you don't know you're not going to hell? That's the whole reason we're saved, is we're being saved from hell. And she's like, no, it's not. And I'm not worried about it. I just live holy. How
There you
can you
go.
live holy? You
There you go.
how can you live holy? We sin all the time. No,
No,
I
we
don't.
don't.
What?
Right? There it is.
And
There's
it
your
was just
first
like,
hailstone.
yeah, it's like, what in the world are you talking about? She's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, before we debate anymore, you should read this passage, this passage, and this passage. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll read those passages. So on my break, I pulled out my phone and went to John 15, I think it was one of them, talking about being of the vine and the branches that are removed from the vine and whatever. And it just like, it resonated with me. It's like, oh, the worldview you're trying to reconstruct might not be correct. Oh no, this is a problem. I
Uh-huh.
need to make sure, because I've just gone through this. I just went through 18 months of trying to figure out how the world works, and I'm just now finally trying to get it back together, and I might be doing it wrong. Oh no, I need to figure this out. And I was invited to the Bible study around this time. So okay, yeah, I'm going to go to this Bible study. So we went. I talked far more than I should have. I had no idea what I was talking about, and I don't remember what the topic was. But at the end, Brother Stephen asked, so, do you have any questions? This is your first time here. Do you have any questions? I'm like, yes. I'd like to know more about this living free from sin, this holiness thing. Oh, we'll get to that some other time. We'll talk about it later. And it's like, but that's the question I have. And
Right.
we covered it. We covered it a little bit after the fact. But then we went upstairs and there was volleyball, there was snacks, and I could just feel that these were wholesome people. They lived different.
Yep.
They weren't talking about unholy things. They were just talking about, how is school going? What do you do for work? Oh, this happened with this, and let's go play this. And nobody was unreasonably angry with each other. They just played the games, they ate the snacks, they were genuinely interested. It's like, wow, these are some really great people. This is who I was raised to be like. I want to be like this. This is the type of people I want to be with. So I went to the Bible study for a few weeks and I decided, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. So I'm going to go visit this Church of God, whatever that might be. And I sat down the very Brother Tom's spot. I went and sat right there. Stephen came and sat with me, and I have got no idea what was preached, what was saying, anything. I can't remember that.
Hmm.
But for me, there was just such a bright, holy presence. Like what's described about the temple
Yes.
and how there's just that Shania glory
Yep.
over the Ark of the Covenant. I was
Yep.
experiencing that in just my soul. It
Yeah.
was just there.
Yeah.
And there was such a genuineness in the singing. The message was true.
Yep.
And it resonated with me. But I'm like, okay, I don't want to be taken in. I need to figure this out. So I prayed, God, go make the church service I'm at the Baptist church better than this if this is where I should be going. And I went to the Baptist church that Wednesday. They sang Amazing Grace. They sang How Great Thou Art. They preached from the book of Proverbs, but it was so empty. The Spirit of God wasn't there. It was dead. It was dry. It was
Mm.
dark.
Sounds like God
And
was witnessing to you that you were sitting in a heavenly place.
yes, yes.
That's what it's
So
like.
that was my experience.
Yeah.
And then I then had many questions that I'd write down, just like I did with that youth pastor I dealt with. And I would talk to the pastor we have, Brother Ward, and I'd have a list of questions. And he would just sit in his chair, leaning back, and be able to say, okay, well, boom, 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 answer it, pull up scriptures, quote this, quote that, and answer each question in full detail, and then answer questions that go along with that question that I didn't even ask, that he was inspired to say in that moment. And it was just it's been such a blessing being under the preaching, worshiping,
Mm.
and then the counsel that we have in the Church of God.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So I can see the faithfulness of God to lead anyone
Hmm.
who's honestly searching with all their heart, no matter, where they came from, what their background was, where they're located.
Hmm.
Uh, if you're honest and you're searching for God with all your heart, you will find him.
Yeah.
There's many examples of that. Look at all the Filipinos,
Yeah.
remote island. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're ready, God will make sure that he gets you to his people.
Hmm. So you gave me a few points of something else I wanted to talk about. You talked about heavenly places and the Filipinos. And I think you have an interesting testimony that touches on both of those things that I've heard many years ago. So, one of the things we don't do in the Church of God is the Pentecostal speaking in tongues, which is touching on that heavenly language type of business that I've heard about. I've never really experienced it. I've seen stuff online where it's like, what are they saying? What are they doing? This thing's wild.
Yep.
Um, Not for me. But people believe it. But you have a
Mhm.
much different experience of speaking in tongues that I'd like for you to kind of tell us about.
So, speaking in tongues, as you read it, you get the understanding in Acts chapter 2, uh, when everyone started speaking in tongues. They were speaking in their language in which they were born. Even someone even says that. How come we understand these men speaking in the language from where we were born? So right there, that tells you it's language. It's not gibberish.
Hmm.
Uh, so speaking in tongues is speaking a foreign language. And we got that understanding, and anyone can get that understanding when they read those scriptures in Acts chapter 2, if they have an honest heart. It's language, because there's a bunch of people gathered together in one place from different parts of the world that speak different languages. That's very clear if you read those and study those out. So the speaking in tongues is speaking a foreign language. So I've had that experience being married to a Filipina, and I have experienced that many times where I get the translation um, of a foreign language, but especially their language, because they're special people. God put them on my heart specifically. And so on my first trip or two over to the Philippines for camp meeting, I had an experience where God was talking to me, and he whispered to me in my ear, I want you to study their culture and their language, and I want you to just listen carefully. And so we were hiking a volcano one afternoon, me, Sister Pangilinan, and Brother Pangilinan, and Luce, my girlfriend at the time. We were not married. And we were starting to hike. We'd been hiking for a while. And all of a sudden, Brother Pangilinan asks our tour guide something. And then he answers him. But it wasn't in Tagalog, it was in Pampango, which I don't know at all, still to this day. And God gave me the translation of what they said. And when God gave me that translation, I gasped a little bit. I went, like that. And Sister Pangilinan saw that, and she said, you understood what they said, didn't you? And I said, yes, everything. And she said, okay, I'm going to test you. What did they say? And I said, well, the tour guide said, not much further. And when we get to the top, it levels off, and then we start our descent downward. And she said, that's exactly what they said. And I said, yes, God told me, and he told it to me just like that. And I heard it that way after he translated it. I'll never forget that. And then there were other times we were sitting at the kitchen table. We weren't eating dinner or anything. We were just sitting around talking, and I was observing everyone. And in the background, I heard one of the children tell one of Luce's nieces or nephews, I'm going outside to play. And she said, okay, be careful. But it was in Tagalog. I understood that like it was English. And then there's also many times, even to this day, when I think the last meeting when we were over there and the Roberts were with us during the altar call at the end after the message, Sister Kayla, Sister Pangilinan took turns getting up, exhorting people that needed to be saved in the congregation to come forward and get saved, and that God had been talking to them. And she's saying all of this in Tagalog, and God would give me the translation, and I would just reach over and translate it to Brother Jack and Sister Mary, just as clearly as God was telling them. It comes and goes, but it happens.
So, do you speak Tagalog today or Tagalog?
I do speak Tagalog today. I'm not absolutely fluent, and especially when it comes to spiritual things. Spiritual things are very deep. So God helps me with translation when I'm there. But yes, I can speak conversational Tagalog to a degree about a young boy's age, but not any deeper. And so if there's a need beyond that, God will give me the translation. And that happens often.
That's incredible.
It's necessary because I'm the only English speaking person there. And God does that at times when it's necessary.
Right.
And that's what Acts is all about. That second chapter in Acts, it's all about that. God is
And
not the author of confusion. So when
right.
people speak in the Pentecostal tongue, that's not from God. I'm sorry, that's the truth.
Right. It's nonsense.
No. Tongues is language. So yes, I speak in tongues. I speak a little Tagalog and a little bit of Spanish. I speak more Tagalog than I do Spanish. So
And
yes, yeah, that still
God
happens.
God gives that when there is a need for it. It's not,
Absolutely.
you wouldn't get a gift if you're in Spanish class in high school and you just need a passing grade. God's God's not going to just give you the gift of tongues in that situation. It would be if you are in a foreign land and you need to be a witness or a help there, and
Yeah,
God will
when
give you
there's
that.
yes, when there's a need, God does it. Um,
Was
because
it
he does
something
not want
you
people,
was it something you had prayed for, or did you even think that about it?
not at that time, but after I realized what's been going on,
Hmm.
then I started praying about it. And then, for many years, I did pray for God to help me learn the language. And I'm still learning it. There's still a lot of vocabulary words I don't know.
Right.
But yes, I have prayed about it before.
That's incredible.
Yes. It's, a,
So,
it's awesome, actually.
so tell us a little bit about the work in the Philippines, how that started. I know you're well acquainted with the history and the people out there, and I'd love to have Sister Ellen Pangilinan on the podcast sometime.
Oh,
But
shit. That'd be a great resource.
um, I regret sometimes that we've not started this earlier because there's different individuals that I wish I could have had this type of conversation with and captured, like Brother John Green or Brother Will Coxon the Elder, or Brother Curtis Jenkins, just people that personally touched my life, that have passed on. And I know Sister Gearhart would have been one of those people I would have wanted to talk with. So do you want to kind of tell some of her story and just kind of the start of the congregation?
Yes. Well, I never met Sister Gearhart personally, even though she was from our congregation, because she passed away before I got saved.
Okay.
But she, um, God called her to go to the Philippines. Um, and it was an interesting account. Um, I heard about her call through a Church of God pastor who has passed away and gone on to her reward. But she and Sister Gearhart were at a camp meeting one year, and Sister Gearhart came in to their dorm and knelt down to pray and thought that this other sister was sleeping. And she prayed and said, God, if you want me to go to the Philippines, I'm willing to go. Just make the way. And that was her call. So she went, and um, came in contact with a lady by the name of Selma Young, whose husband was stationed there, who also attended a Church of God congregation in Oklahoma, I think, at the time. And so
Okay.
there was that connection. And so they started having services, and then people from the base there would come occasionally. There was also a contact with Luce's mother, or Sister Pangilinan, or I'm not exactly sure. I'm really fuzzy about the way that they contacted the
Hmm.
Cayuga family, but it was either a jeepney ride and a church invitation or something like that to one of their services. And so a Cayuga was invited to church, and I think it might have been Sister Ellen and her
Hmm.
mom or something. And that's how they met Sister Gearhart, and it kind of started from there. That's when things started to develop in a place north of the current location of the congregation, about 45 minutes north, in a place called Bamban.
Okay.
And there was a work there that Sister Gerhardt pastored there for a little while, and then through a series of events, then it relocated to Paniki, a little further north of that location. And so there was an established congregation in Paniki for 50 years. And then the Dao congregation rose up from contacts made at work. There's a lot of work in the Dao area because of the Air Force Base, or what used to be the Air Force Base. Now it's an airport
Okay.
and uh, a a place where there's a lot of activity. What do you call that?
Commercial center,
Yes,
commerce.
yes. There's a lot of call centers there now. There's a lot of stores, shops. It's almost like a little mega city and airport in the same place.
Okay.
It's called Clark City now. Anyway, there's a lot of work there. And so some of the
Hmm.
saints would commute all the way there for work. And so Luce's sister worked at the base. Her mother worked at the base. That's it. Luce's mother worked at the base, um, tailoring clothes for Americans and came in contact with Americans. So there was a lot of work at that area. And so there was a lot of commuting back and forth between Paniki and Dau. And so Sister Pangilinan started holding services there. And then the Winces eventually came in the 80s. Before they got married, they came one at a time. I think Sister Linda Wentz was first, and then Brother Gary after that. And then they got married. They had 5 children there. The work started growing in Dau and Paniki. And then after Sister Pangilina became ordained, then she took over the work and became the pastor in Dau. Sister Gerhard stayed in Paniki, and pretty much that's it. So Sister Pangilina has been the pastor in Dau for about 40 or 45 years. Paniki's been around a little over 50 years.
Hmm. That's
That's
incredible.
that's it in kind of a very, very condensed version. Sister Pangilina will give you a lot more and give you better
Absolutely.
dates, but that's kind of it in a
And
nutshell.
were the Winces missionaries that went there, or were they at the military base and got saved?
They were
Um,
missionaries that went there.
okay.
Brother Gary told me he felt the call to go. Sister Linda, I didn't hear her testimony, but Brother Gary told me his, and he felt called to go. And so they both went, and then they ended up getting married there, and then having
Mhm.
4 of their 5 children there. They were all born in Paniki except for the youngest. And then they spent 15 years there, and then they came back. Sister
So
Gerhardt passed away in 92 during the eruption of Mount Pinatubo.
were they related? The eruption and her passing?
No,
That's a dramatic way to go.
no, it just happened. It just happened
Okay.
that way. There was a lot of things happening during the eruption. Sister Gerhardt passed away, congestive heart failure, and then the Kunanans, which would be my in-laws,
Okay.
were leaving and coming to the United States and immigrating to the United States in 91, 92.
Okay. When did you get married? Is that
2000, 2001.
2001?
I met
Okay.
Luce in 99.
Okay.
Luce came for a visit from the Philippines to visit Oli and Tom. And then it was a very short visit. And that's when I first met her in 99. And then we got married in 2001.
So, we're coming sort of to a close, but something I'd like to touch on as in closing is as long as I've been coming to the Church of God, you've been the one bringing the prayer service thoughts um, on our first Wednesday of the month. You've been the one kind of giving those thoughts as your work schedule allows and that type of thing. What what was your transition, and how long have you been doing that to be called to work in that position?
Um,
And how do you kind of prepare for those messages you bring?
good question. So Brother Ward approached me. How long has it been now? 9, 10, 12, 13. I want to say maybe 2015. I'm not exactly sure, but Brother Ward approached me
Okay.
to ask me to do it. Um, and at first, I was under the impression that we were going to kind of rotate, me and then whoever else would do prayer meetings during camp meetings. So it'd be me and then who was it? Sister Faye or Sister French or Brother Mark or Brother Dustin or Brother Jim, and that's what I understood it to be at first, in that we would rotate like each month. Well, then that went
Hmm.
from, no, you're doing it every month, and I said, oh, I am. I said, oh, well, Brother Ward, please pray for me, and he said, I am. And he said, I want you to bring encouragement, and I said, well, that sounds great because I really enjoy bringing
Hmm.
thoughts that are encouraging. So you pray
Hmm.
that God will use me, and I'll do my part in praying. So he asked me to do that quite a few years ago. Now, the reason why I'm not there every Wednesday night is because of my work schedule. When I left my last employer and work now for Dignity, my work schedule changed. And so it takes me out of service every other Wednesday. So it's
Hmm.
spotty. I'll be doing it May, June, and July, skip August and September, and then back again October. So it's kind of weird, but this is my last year and then I'm retiring. So Sister Rebecca does it for me when I can't.
Right.
So he asked me to do it, and I took it on and prayed much about it. And that's the only way I know how to do it, is kneel and ask God. And I
Hmm.
make sure, and my wife gave me the very best advice. She said, just make sure we don't hear from you. And that hit me. And Brother Ward said,
Hmm.
amen. And that
Yeah.
really hit me. And so that really gets me on my knees. And
Hmm.
I still pray that way. Lord, just give me thoughts that you want me to bring that will encourage. And so I took these scriptures with me. Seek to excel to the edifying of the body. And I believe that's a very good motive. And I always want that to be my motive. I want to edify the body.
Hmm.
Um, so that's how I pray. And so when I prepare, and I've been preparing for this coming May, I pray often and just get before God and ask Him, now, is this just for me, or is this something that you want me to share with the saints? Is this something that you want the saints to hear that will encourage them and be beneficial to them? And Lord, please check my motives. I
Hmm.
want to make sure that my motives are right and they're what you want them to be and what they should be. And I want to make sure I'm not exalting myself or putting myself on display. I want you to hide me behind your word so that
Right.
you stand out and your word stands out and the saints get encouraged. I pray that way every time, but a little differently each time. And I
Yeah.
start praying about 2 weeks before it's due, or even more. And I
Hmm.
just start searching the scriptures and then ask God to help. And then when I start reading, then something will ding. There's an extra witness,
Hmm.
revelation, like, yeah, this. And then I start praying that way. Lord, do you want me to bring this? Is this what you want me to bring? If you do, help me
Hmm.
expound on this thought. How will it encourage? Help me to know how to build on it so that it encourages the saints to keep continuing in their walk, to
Right.
encourage them to keep drawing up closer to you. Help me, and I'll do my best. That's how I prepare every time.
That's incredible. I remember another experience in Chick-fil-A. Um, I also in the drive-thru, same drive-thru, but a good year and a half later, after I'd been saved for a while, it was with a Mormon, and they could not believe that we do not appoint people to just deliver the message that comes from headquarters, and that the people that preach, the teachers that teach, the people that are in positions are people that are appointed by God, and then they go to God to find what they are bringing. Like, it just couldn't believe it. And the message I had listened to that was on my mind when we were doing that conversation was Brother McCauley's message with Greenville. And I've talked to Brother McCauley about this.
Mm-hmm.
He had a whole message prepared, and this group came in that was causing trouble, and on the spot, as service is going, he's sitting there, the chairman's going, he is writing down a couple scriptures that came to mind, and then he preached for 90 minutes, a very powerful message that was appropriate for the time, off of a little 3x5, couple scriptures written down. You
Yep.
start there, then you expound. And just how could someone preach that way? It's because they have prayed ahead of time for God to be there with them, and that God, in the moment when you're standing there, bringing forth the word of God, God comes and then just
He
tells
does.
you what to say.
Absolutely.
And
Holy Ghost inspiration. That's the
mhm,
only way it works. That's the only way it's effective, is Holy
mhm,
Ghost inspiration. People have to be convinced that more than just flesh and blood are talking to you, and that's how God does
mhm.
it.
Yeah, and it's so incredible that we have that in the Church of
Mhm.
God,
Yes.
and how we have so many different examples of ways it can be doing it. God, it's not a cookie cutter God
No.
where everywhere needs to look this way or have this type of exuberance or this whatever. You've
No.
got Brother Ward and Brother Nathan that God inspires them ahead of time to write their words the way they do write them, and then they come and deliver the message. And then you have others that will have maybe like more of a bulleted list or just some scriptures, and they kind of expound, and they don't go word for word, and they just get up and preach, and God works however, but it's that individual going to God to see what God would have them say. And for me, when I've been used in different services, whether it's the camp meeting prayer and praise or as a Sunday school teacher, it it's such a heavy weight to carry.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm coming and I'm speaking to the saints, and I need to really find what God wants to say. Not what I want to say, but what God wants to say.
Right.
And for me, as a Sunday school teacher, it's a little bit easier. I'm not a Sunday school teacher now, but I was for a period of like 3 or 4 years. It's okay. These teens or whatever the age group is, they need to know these things. These are very important things they need to understand. So we're just gonna sit and plow this little section of grass until it's very clear, or as clear as we can make it for them, that they understand this. But in for me, encouragement is so difficult because it's so broad, and it's hard to put your hands on that. It's just incredible to hear people get up and give just encouragement, and it's like, oh man, that's such a powerful thought to take with me for the rest of the week, for to help me overcome this trial. um it's a wonderful thing,
It
the,
is.
the
It's
the
all
the diversity we have from the pulpit and from the teachers, and how God is ordering it, not any one individual or group of individuals.
exactly there. Without the witness of the Holy Ghost, people will not be convinced. There has to
Hmm.
be that witness that the Spirit of God is behind it all, directing it all, and inspiring the individual to say what they're saying, or people will not be convinced. They'll just take it as the word of men and not of God. So God will reveal his spirit is behind something when his spirit actually is prompting the individual to speak.
Hmm.
And then there is a witness amongst all of the people in the church that God's hand is on that speaker for that moment or is in it.
We've kind of
That
gone full circle here. We were talking about worship at the beginning, and one of the things that I guess you could kind of say, when you're raising your hand to that song and worshiping with the fellow believers, it's because God's witnessing to you that what is being said is true. Not just because it resonates with your testimony, but because it has that same resonance as truth does.
Mm-hmm.
That is what the gospel is. That was what happened to me. That is how God works, how God speaks.
Yep.
And you can have that when somebody's just giving a testimony of how they overcame a trial,
Mm-hmm.
or how the words of the song really speak to it in a great way. It's
Yes.
that witnessing.
Yep. It's out of agreement. Yep.
Mhm. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and sharing your experiences, and um, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Sure. Thank you.